Hello and welcome to Claret Blue. My name's Dan Rowlands and I'm joined here by John Townley for a bonus episode this week. We're trying something new, John. Now, this might not work, it might work. We want the audience to let us know. We're going to try and do a combined 11. And this is something that you see on social media quite a lot of fans putting two sides together, your opponent of the weekend, and trying to build a kind of fantasy team between the two. Now, I will say we're going to just try this over the next couple of weeks. So this might be the only one. People hate it. But we play Spurs, Bournemouth, Man City and Arsenal, don't we? Now, we're going to try it for Spurs, Man City and Arsenal because there's lots of good players available from those opponents. We can't sit here in good faith and do a Villa-Bournemouth combined 11 because it's going to be all Villa and there's no talking point there. And if you say, we have to put 3 Bournemouth players in for the sake of the video, I don't want to sit here talking about putting a Bournemouth player in over Douglas Luiz or something because it's mad. So we're going to try it for Spurs today, and if people enjoy it, we'll try it for City and Arsenal as well in a couple of weeks.
I like these combined 11s. They do get very... tribal, I suppose, between football fans. So hopefully, if there are Spurs fans watching this, sorry, but you can make your own in the comments as well, and then get hate off
exactly.
Villa fans.
To kind of balance this out, because like you said, we're going to be biased towards Villa, even against Spurs, Man City, Arsenal. We will try and offer some kind of balance. So we're going to pit two sides here, not against each other, but I've gone to whoscored.com and found the ratings for this season so far and built an 11 out of who their algorithm suggests. And that will throw up some names who you do not expect to be here now and won't be in yours. But that's what this conversation is going to be. Okay. So we're going to sit here and record for 15, 20 minutes, cut it down to 10, 15, just a little bonus video for the week. So how we're going to do this then, we're going to split it into the 4 positions on the field: goalkeeper, defenders, midfielders and forwards. We're going to take it in turns between each position to give you the Who Scored team and their stats versus the team, John, that you've picked. And I will probably chip in with some of my opinions as well. In the combined 11 between Tottenham Hotspur and Aston Villa, John, who's in goal?
My goalkeeper is Emi Martinez. And by the way, I would probably guess straight away that Vicario is on the Who Scored.
He is.
Yeah. And to be fair, he's had an exceptional season so far. I actually think he's a very good goalkeeper. When he first joined Spurs, I must admit I'd never heard of him. But he's been very good. And I can't kind of complain with the kind of, season so far, I suppose. But my team is a team for a full campaign, whatever it may be. And Martinez is, he won the Yashin Trophy last week or the week before, so obviously he's my goalkeeper.
The Who Scored pick is Vicario. His rating is 6.97 for the season so far. Emi Martinez, quite a disparity actually, just 6.49. His rating in the Premier League, but I'd put that down to not many clean sheets for Martinez. Probably brings his rating down a little bit from a stats perspective. Yeah,
very good goalkeepers between them, but I went Martinez because for obvious reasons. And what I would say actually about this whole, my squad, I feel like when anyone builds these teams and they include their own team, I think you kind of put I put the Villa 11, should we say, first, and then you kind of drop Spurs players in saying, well, would they get in over this one? You don't kind of start and mix them. You have your team first, don't you? So yeah, that's kind of my excuse as we go on, I suppose.
Right, we'll move on to the defence then. I know we spoke about this just before we started. You picked a 3 at the back formation. The Who Scores is a 4 at the back. If we'd have worked out to pick the same kind of system, obviously I would have not looked at a couple of fullbacks and I would have gone for an extra central defender as well. But again, just for the variance of discussion. So I'll read you the Who Scored defence first. They've got Pedro Porro, Christian Romero, Mickey van der Ven and Luca Dean.
Okay. Again, I think it's probably based off Spurs having a better season. To be fair, it's only a couple of points now, isn't it? In the table between us and Spurs. So I have it again on how I think this team would best perform, I suppose. So I've gone with Pau Torres as my left centre-half because I think he's probably the best progressive centre-back in Europe. I went with Ezri Konsa as my right-hand centre-back because, again, when I put the Villa team in an 11 and then I dropped Spurs players in, I know Romero and Van der Ven are good, but I can't take Konsa out of my team. I think he's excellent. And he's an outstanding footballer. And I know Romero is equally a good defender, really. He's a good defender, but he has moments of madness. As we saw in the Chelsea game, he can cost your team. He got a red card in that game. He cost him for that one. He cost him for Wolves probably as well. But I have included Van der Ven as my kind of central centre-back because I think he's very good as well. He's very quick.
Very quick.
Imagine playing Van der Ven and Pau Torres on a high line. You can have Torres, obviously, with his ability to play the ball. Van der Ven's good on the ball as well, but his recovery speed, etc. That's what allows Postecoglou to play that high line, really. So, yeah, I think that back three is actually very good. I think that's certainly Champions League worthy.
Yeah, very nice. And again, that is if I was picking a 3 defender system, I would go exactly what you've gone for. The Who Scores statistics have got Porro at 7.1, Matty Cash was 6.9, I think. Christian Moreira 7.12, Van der Ven 6.18. So the lowest of the Spurs defenders in this side. And in comparison, Villa's best defender, Ezri Konsa, is 6.71. Not much between Konsa and Van der Ven, to be fair. But Romero quite high, considering, as you said, he's been sent off. Yeah. I didn't think he'd be as high as he is.
So I've gone with Alex Moreno on the left, and I've gone with Porro on the right. There isn't much kind of shading him and Cash, but I think Porro, he's played in the Champions League. He is a very good player. They signed him for, was it like nearly 50, I think? 40, 50 million, I believe. Yeah, I think he's a good player. On the right, he goes up and down. He's got good quality as well. So kind of just shaded him over Cash, just to balance out a bit more, because already I'm kind of Villa top heavy. But yeah, I went with Moreno on the left because we know what he can do. I think Udogie's a good player for Tottenham. Yeah, Moreno's been transformative for Villa, and Tottenham fans might not really be aware of who he is or if he's any good, but you got to trying to believe us on that one. He's excellent, and also slightly skews the system here because obviously Moreno doesn't have a rating in the Premier League this season because he's not played, but we all know from this side of things how good he is. As I said, Cash 6.95 in the Premier League, 12 appearances, 2 goals, 1 assist. I'm picking the creative numbers here rather than diving into the defensive ones, just because attacking fullbacks, I guess. Pedro Porro, 11 games, 2 assists, no goals, 7.10. So not huge amounts between the two. And I think a toss of a coin for most people who would, for Villa fans, I think a toss of a coin, probably more neutrals would pick Porro, I would have assumed. Let's move into the midfield then. I've got a midfield 3 that I'm working with from Who Scored. Are you the same? I have a midfield 2, and then I have a forward player. So I suppose I could put those as a 3, to be fair. I'm playing like a double pivot. So firstly, Luiz is the best midfielder of both teams combined. So he's in there quite easily. This midfield partner, I was really debating this one. And again, it probably shows my loyalties to Villa. I had Bissouma in there originally because I really like Bissouma. I think he's very good. He did drop off last season, but that was probably mostly because he was playing under a manager who didn't allow him to play his best football, but I still went with John McGinn. So Luiz and McGinn are my double pivot. I just couldn't eventually bring myself to not including McGinn. There's definitely Villa bias in that, to be fair. So again, I couldn't really argue with the Tottenham fan who puts Bissouma in over him. I think Bentancur is also a very good player, but I don't know, he's had some injury troubles recently, and I just thought, well, Bissouma's probably more likely to complement Luiz, but hell, I put McGinn and Luiz anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Was Kamara close at any point for you? Yes, I suppose he was close, but I think I just wanted to put McGinn in there, to be honest with you. You mentioned before you've got a creative player that could be in a midfield 3. I'm assuming that's Maddison, so let's hold off on him for a second. The Who Scored 11, you've mentioned a few times there about Villa bias, is exactly the same. McGinn and Luiz is the 2 best midfielders of both sides, with exactly the same rating, 7.16, which I would have expected Luiz to be slightly higher, but McGinn has scored goals recently, so I think that boosts his. Kamara, for reference, is 6.77 in the Premier League, and Bissouma is 6.99. So if it was Kamara or Bissouma, the stats would give it to Bissouma. But overall, McGinn and Luiz are the best midfielders across both sides, and from the Villa perspective, I wholeheartedly agree with that. So bias or otherwise, those 2 are in there. The third midfielder I've got in as a midfield 3 is obviously slightly further forward in James Maddison, one of the form players in the Premier League this season. He's, I think, the highest rated in the entire side with 7.58. Yeah, I have Maddison as well in that kind of creative role. I did dabble with Jacob Ramsey, but I couldn't. You know what I mean? Like, again, if Tottenham fans are watching this, I get battered if I went with those 2 and then Ramsey. Yeah, Maddison's an outstanding player. I was really surprised by the lack of interest in him over the summer, and that's not hindsight. Every time I've watched him, I just think he's a top player. There was always comparisons between him and Grealish, and I don't really know why in terms of what player they are, because they're completely different. But the numbers he's been posting this season have been excellent as well. He's a top player, and when Leicester were struggling last season, I know he had injury problems and stuff over the last few years, but I was really surprised to see that it was only Tottenham and Newcastle really that were going after him. I thought there'd be all of the top 6 teams as such going for him. That's the sort of calibre of player that I hope Villa can attract heading into the next couple of years, because Maddison, if we did put in a bid for him in the summer, I don't think he would have even really bothered with us, not because he's a Coventry fan or whatever, but just in terms of, well, Villa in Europe, we'll see how they go for the next year. I think players probably saw it as a bit of a risk, some players anyway. But yeah, hopefully in the next years we can compete with those teams for those types of players.
In my front three then from Who Scored, I've got Kulusevski and Son. Kulusevski on the right, Son on the left. My main striker, I don't think there's much debate, and I'm assuming he's in yours as well, is Ollie Watkins. He's actually got the second highest rating of those front three players. Kulusevski 7.02, Ollie Watkins 7.3, and Son 7.31.
There's a lot of talent there for sure, but I went with Watkins and Son as my pair up top, and not to get like tactical with it, but I'm not too sure if that would be the best blend actually, because they both like to kind of come in from the left, and Watkins likes to go down that channel and cut inside, so does Son, but it's still a partnership I'd like to see at Villa Park at some point. Son's back to his best, I think, and it's certainly a player who will be dangerous this weekend. I think he scored a really nice goal as well for Korea in the international break. I believe it was this international break. He cut in onto his left and then just put it top corner like effortlessly, and I was like, Jesus, that could happen at any point from any distance. So no matter how well Villa defend, I suppose that's a player that can just come up with that piece of magic, and I'm not sure Villa have that level of quality yet. We have players who can certainly make things happen, but for Son just to cut in and find the top corner out of nothing, that's why Tottenham have been so good, I suppose, over the last 7 or 8 years, I suppose.
And Kane as well. Obviously, he's not there
anymore. Course, there is Kane, yeah.
He's probably quite a big reason why Spurs have been half decent over the last couple of years. When you're talking about other players that could have formed up that forward line, you could have had Maddison further forward and switched a different midfielder in there instead. Not somebody who would get in there on their rating, but Brennan Johnson is somebody that I really like. He could have made a case possibly for that front three as well. Diaby, incidentally, when I mentioned the ratings before from Who Scored, Kulusevski 7.02, Moussa Diaby 7.01. So it was very, very tight for having two Villa players in that front three. Diaby, Watkins and Son would also be, that would probably be my choice, to be fair, as a front three. Let's go through these teams in full then. You can read out your player by player. I'll have a graphic on screen if you just tell, obviously for people listening, what the split is, how many Villa players, how many Spurs players. You run through yours first. This is your opinion as a Villa fan with some bias, and I'll then share the Who Scored statistical team after you.
So in goal I have Emi Martinez, a back three of Konsa, Van der Ven, Torres, Pedro Porro and Alex Moreno playing as fullbacks, Louisa McGinn as a double pivot, James Maddison as a 10, and then Ollie Watkins and Son up front.
Nice. How many Spurs and how many Villa is that? 7
Villa players and 4 Tottenham players, which is something you'd probably expect from an Aston Villa podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And if people disagree, and if this has fallen into the hands of Spurs fans who will obviously think very differently, get involved in the conversation. This is just something that is a little bit of fun. This means nothing. Let's go through the Who Scored statistical 11 then. We've got Vicario in goal, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven and Dean as a back 4, McGinn, Louise and Maddison as a midfield 3 with Maddison further forward. McGinn further forward and Louise is great going forward as well. So who knows who can be the most advanced man there. Kulusevski, Watkins and Son as a front 3. That is a split of the exact opposite of yours with 7 Spurs players and 4 Villa, which I, as I said, don't agree with. I would have more Villa players in that. In my personal opinion, I side with your side more than the Who Scored one.
Oh, thanks, Dan.
But for the sake of conversation, I thought it had to be balanced to some degree. If we both just went 9 Villa players, that would be the end of the video, wouldn't it? We'll call it there, John. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Like I said, a quick bonus video, something a little bit different from us. If you enjoyed it, let us know. If you didn't and you want us to change the format, if you've got any suggestions for us, again, let us know. This is, as far as I'm concerned, a collaborative process. You're the audience of people who consume this content. If you want to see different things, you let us know and we'll try it. We're open to suggestions. John, thanks for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you soon.